Hello friends, my name is Ashish. Welcome to my channel, Crimson Files US. Today, I am going to tell you the story of a jailbreak that is known as the absolute masterpiece of the jailbreak world, a story where 3 prisoners escaped jail overnight. But then, something happened to them that shook them to their very core. What makes this jailbreak different from any other is that these prisoners didn't escape through a tunnel, nor did they use the jail yard. The path they chose, if there had been even the slightest negligence, it could have cost them their lives. It took these prisoners nearly 6 months to plan this escape, and overnight, they succeeded in fleeing without leaving a single clue behind. In this jailbreak story, 2 massive questions stand before us. First, what kind of planning did they do for 6 months that allowed them to vanish from this prison? And second, what happened to them after the escape that took this story in a completely shocking new direction? The story begins at the Orange County Jail, where at 5 a.m., guards head out on rounds to count the prisoners. During the round, as soon as they reach a specific cell, their eyes widen in absolute disbelief at the scene before them. They see that the 3 beds in the cell are covered with sheets, but the 3 prisoners are gone. This jailbreak was executed in 2016 at California's Orange County Jail, a fortress where even a bird couldn't enter without permission. It was a 6-story facility where the world's most dangerous prisoners were housed. Each floor held about 300 inmates. Because all these cells had bars and were situated right next to each other, and roving guards had eyes on them constantly, there was no place to hide, nor was there any way to escape. But here, there was one prisoner who found a way out even in these impossible conditions. This prisoner's name was Nayeri, who was from Iran, and since only a few months remained until his trial, he decided to fight a do-or-die battle. He planned a jailbreak that no prisoner had ever thought of, and no guard ever got wind of. Before knowing how Nayeri escaped, we must understand how he reached the jail and how his life of crime began. Nayeri was born into a Persian family in Iran. Sometime later, his parents moved him to the city of Fresno in California. He was highly intelligent and cunning from childhood, which is why he believed in breaking rules. By the time he was 17, he joined the U.S. Marines. But a short time later, he was discharged, and from here, his life took a turn that changed it forever. By 2012, he had committed several dangerous crimes. In one instance, he killed a man who farmed marijuana and then cut his body into different pieces. This was a crime for which, if Nayeri had fallen into police hands, he would have faced life imprisonment. To escape the police, he fled back to Iran again, where the police couldn't touch him. He stayed in Iran for about 2 years, but finally, the police used his wife to trap him through deception, and he was forced to return to California. Upon returning, the police arrested him, after which he was thrown into the Orange County Men's Jail. While life ends for other prisoners after going there, for Nayeri, this was just the beginning. The moment he stepped into the jail, he had decided he would escape. There were still 6 months left before Nayeri's trial began, and he understood very well that he had to escape this jail before the trial started. Although this jail was equipped with high security, as they say, every strong thing definitely has a weak link, and a weak link was attached to this jail as well. Nayeri began thinking about ways to escape all the time, and then his eyes fell on something no one else had noticed. Nayeri saw a ventilation grill installed near the bed in his cell. For others, it was ordinary, but for Nayeri, it was an excellent path to escape. This ventilation grill was made of steel, and removing it was a challenge in itself because it was sealed from all sides. Even if he removed it and got inside, there was no guarantee he could escape. Despite the high risk, Nayeri decided he would cut this grill. But at the same time, he knew he couldn't do this alone. He decided to include 2 other prisoners in his plan. That's when he met 2 inmates named B.S. Duong and Jonathan Tu. B.C. Duong was a seasoned criminal and a gangster with many people working for him outside. Jonathan was a member of a Vietnamese gang who had fallen into police hands. Regardless, Nayeri told them both about his plan, and they agreed immediately. Now, the biggest question in front of the 3 was how to remove this ventilation grill. They decided they would use a saw to cut the grill. Among the 3, only Bak Duong had connections outside the jail. So, Nayeri told him to use his connections to get a saw inside the jail. Gradually, their plan started to take shape. Finally, with the help of an associate, B.A.C. succeeded in bringing a saw inside. Bak's associate came to visit him in jail and had hidden the saw inside the sole of his shoe, which he handed to Biak, saving it from the guards' watchful eyes. Nayeri's idea had now turned into a working plan, and they had to execute it as soon as possible. Starting their plan, they decided that 2 of them would cut the steel ventilation grill, while the 3rd would stand at the cell door to keep watch on the guards. As soon as the guards finished their last round at 9 p.m. and left, Biak and Jonathan began cutting the steel ventilation grill. They had to do this work in absolute silence, so that no guard or other prisoner would notice. One wrong step or sound could ruin their entire plan and increase their sentences. But since Nayeri's trial date was approaching, he had to get out of there fast. After about 16 days of continuous hard work, they succeeded in cutting the steel band. But another problem stood before them. As soon as they cut the steel band, they faced a very narrow passage that was so dark they couldn't see anything. This place was so tight they didn't know if they could all even crawl through it. They were in a dilemma about whether they could escape through this ventilation duct. But because they had no other choice, they decided to move forward. After cutting the steel vent, they hid it by the edge of the bed. The guards on rounds were unaware that a jailbreak was being planned right under their noses. Anyway, the question before them was, how would they cross such a narrow corridor? They had no map of the jail, nor did they know where the path would lead, as the corridor was in a complete blackout. That's when a genius idea came to Nayeri's mind. Nayeri told his two companions that they would need a mobile phone. With the phone's flashlight, they could light up the corridor. Also, Nayeri wanted to record his jailbreak on the mobile. To arrange the phone, he again asked Bak Duong to get one inside. Nayeri believed if Bak could get a saw inside, he could arrange a phone too. Although this was harder than bringing in a saw, Bak's connections were so strong that he could get anything inside. This time too, he succeeded in getting the phone in. A guard was bribed to bring the phone in, and he delivered it to BAC. Once they had the phone, they first turned on its flashlight and pointed it into the pitch-black corridor. With the light, they could see where the ducts were going, what obstacles they had to pass, and which path would lead them out. They could have arranged a simple torch for light, but Nayeri ordered a mobile phone so he could record his jailbreak and show the world what a great artist he was. Now, whenever they went inside this narrow corridor, Nayeri would start recording. He felt this jailbreak would become an example for other prisoners and jailers. A web of pipes lay inside this ventilation system, along with several open spaces that opened into the guard cabins. If they turned into even one wrong place, they would land straight in the hands of jail authorities. Anyway, they started crawling slowly into the vent. Every night, they went in to figure out the nooks and crannies, which pipe went where. The space was so tight they had trouble breathing, and the fear of getting caught haunted them constantly. Several weeks passed like this, and finally, they found the path that could lead them out. But another problem arose. The vent's exit led to a roof, not the ground. And this roof was surrounded by barbed wire on all sides. Seeing this, their hopes were dashed, as the roof was on the 6th floor, very high above the ground. They didn't understand how to escape from there. Much of their time had already been wasted cutting the vent and finding the path. Now they wondered if they should jump from the roof or find another way. With only 3 months left for Nayeri's trial, they had to decide fast. They also needed a map to tell them about the area surrounding the jail. To arrange a map, Nayeri started observing people in the jail. He was looking for someone he could manipulate. Then, his eyes fell on a woman. Her name was Nusha Farin Ravagi, who taught English to prisoners. Although Nayeri's English was good, he used his Iranian background as an excuse to join the English classes so he could get close to Nusha. All prisoners called her Nusha. Because she was a soft-hearted and good woman who saw the good in everyone, Nayeri took advantage of this. Nayeri started behaving very well with Nusha, winning her trust. She was unaware that, unknowingly, she was about to become part of Nayeri's plan. Moving his plan forward, Nayeri told Nusha that his lawyer wasn't coming to meet him, and he wanted to know the lawyer's office address, even though he already knew it. The office was very close to the jail. He asked Nusha to bring him a map of the area near the lawyer's office. He knew this map would include the jail and its surroundings. Without knowing the truth, Nusha brought him the map. Nusha didn't have the slightest clue that she had just handed Nayeri the key to escape jail. She thought she was just helping a troubled prisoner. In this map, Nayeri found everything he needed, including the layout of the jail roof and the route to escape after descending. With the map in hand, they were very close to their plan, but their next step would determine if they could escape or not. They had a saw, a mobile phone, and a map. But the biggest challenge was the ventilation duct that went straight up. They had to reach the roof through this. It was very difficult, but Nayeri found a way. He decided to use the bedsheets provided in jail to climb up. They would turn these sheets into a rope, hook them onto the pipes in the duct, and pull themselves up to reach the roof. They started stealing bedsheets from the jail laundry one by one and hiding them under their beds. When they had enough sheets, they tied them all together with knots. At night, they went into the ventilation duct and tied it to the pipes. One worry was eating Nayeri alive. They could be caught at any moment. If another prisoner saw them, they would alert the guards. They had to leave fast. They executed this entire operation in silence, which is why it took time. They prepared every night inside the vent. This entire preparation took about 5 months. Finally, sneaking around, Nayeri managed to reach the roof they had to escape from. But his joy was short-lived because there were cameras all around the roof. But luck was on his side. All the camera angles were facing the other way. However, while they were coming out from the other side, Nayeri reached the roof, but when he looked down, he broke into a cold sweat. The height was about 100 feet. If they fell, they could die. Now, only one obstacle stood between them and escape. How to get down from the roof. Nayeri went back into the jail and told his partners they needed a real rope. Although BAC had brought a saw and phone, bringing a bulky rope was difficult. If they failed at this last stage, the plan was ruined. Anyway, this time BAC found a unique and novel way to get the rope. During a visit, he told his associate to throw a rope onto the jail roof late at night using a drone, so they could use it when they escaped. Bac's plan worked. They managed to arrange a rope on the roof. Now, they were fully ready to escape. They decided to escape the very next night, but they had to pay special attention to the timing because guards checked cells at 5 a.m. and 8 p.m. They decided to escape after the guards left at 8 p.m. Finally, the time came. After 8 p.m., the three entered the ventilation duct one by one. They started climbing up the bedsheets slowly. They had to cover a significant height, and the fear that a knot might slip constantly plagued them. If they fell, they would be injured or caught. It took them nearly an hour to reach the roof using the bedsheets. Finally, they succeeded. Upon reaching the roof, where the whole city was visible, they first picked up the rope Bac's associate had dropped via drone. Now came the real test. Descending from the roof with a rope was dangerous. They had to go down without safety gear. If guards saw them, it was over. First, they tied the rope to a pipe. Jonathan tied the rope around his waist and started descending slowly. Within about half an hour, he was down. Bac and Nayeri breathed a sigh of relief. Then Biak tied himself and went down. Nayeri was the last left. He also tied the rope and started descending. But when he was only 3 floors down, a new trouble appeared. There was a police station right in front of the jail. 2 police officers came out to smoke cigarettes. Seeing this, Nayeri froze in midair. His heart began to race. He hung there silently, motionless. If the officers looked up by mistake, his game was over. He felt his months of planning were about to be ruined, but luck favored him again. The officers finished their cigarettes and went back inside. Due to hanging for so long, Nayeri's grip was loosening. As soon as the officers went inside, he hurried down. And just like that, the 3 were out of jail. Tone, urgent and chaotic. There were only 5 hours left until the next count at 5 a.m. They had to get as far away as possible. Biak had prepared for this. An associate gang member had already left $900 in cash and a gun in a packet at a specific spot. They picked it up. Now they needed to change their appearance. BAC called a taxi driver named Long Ma and asked him to take them to a market for shopping. After returning from shopping, they had new clothes, food, and supplies. Now they told Long Ma to drive them to a place 800 kilometers away. Long Ma refused, but then they put a gun to his head. Although their plan was to cross the Mexico border from where Nayeri would flee to Iran, suddenly, changing the plan, they told Long Ma to drive 800 kilometers in the opposite direction toward a port area. It was a very confusing decision, but the 3 had succeeded in escaping. Back at Orange County Jail, no one had a clue. Around 5 a.m., when guards came to check, they found Nayeri, BAC, and Jonathan missing. But it was too late. The guards immediately sounded the alarm. Police officers from the station across the street rushed in. Soon, 250 officers were assigned to the case. The news spread like wildfire across America. Press crowds gathered outside. The 3 prisoners hid in a motel in San Jose to avoid police. But since their faces were on every news channel, hiding became harder by the day. Sitting in the hotel room, they watched themselves on TV. They realized the entire police force was after them. Nayeri began to realize the trouble he was in. Their cash was running out and anyone could recognize them. They decided to flee the hotel, but they needed a van. BAC started looking for a second-hand van online. He saw a van listed for sale. BAC called the owner and fixed a meeting. They asked the owner for a test drive. The owner agreed, not knowing Biak would never return with the van. Now they were ready to leave the hotel. But the last problem remaining was Long Ma, the cab driver who had brought them there and was an eyewitness who knew everything. Nayeri understood well that if they left a witness, they would be caught. So he decided to kill Long Ma. When he told BSC Duong this, BSC flatly refused. He told Nayeri that Long Ma had helped them in their bad times, and he wouldn't do this to him. Nayeri and BSC fought over it. Finally, they decided to think about it later. But this is where the countdown to their freedom began. Anyway, the next morning, Nayeri and Jonathan went out to get the van windows tinted black. Bieki seized this opportunity. He went to Long Ma and said, "We need to leave here immediately. Nayeri wants to kill you." When Long Ma asked where they would run, Bieki gave an answer that stunned him. Bieki told Long Ma, "I want to go back to jail." Because his photo was on every channel, he knew he would be caught sooner or later. Meanwhile, when Nayeri and Jonathan returned to the hotel, they saw that Biak Duong had fled. They now realized that the net was closing in on them. They could be caught at any moment. Scrambling, they quickly packed their clothes, jumped into the van, and sped off, heading west. Now, they had nowhere to hide. Their money was running out rapidly, forcing them to face one problem after another. A sinking feeling began to take hold. They started to feel that escaping prison had been a massive mistake. Meanwhile, the police manhunt had hit a dead end. Even after their photos were plastered across every news channel, the police still had no solid leads on their whereabouts. But then, the police received a single tip that completely changed the trajectory of this entire jailbreak. Bieki Duong and Long Ma had returned to Orange County. And there, Bieki Duong did something no one had ever imagined. Bieki walked into a hardware store and approached the employees one by one, telling them, "I am an escaped convict. Call the police." There was a method to Bak's madness. He wasn't just surrendering himself to the police. He had his eyes on the reward money promised to anyone who provided information about the prisoners. Bieki Duong was about to become the first prisoner in history to claim the reward for his own capture. That is why he spilled everything to the police. Details about Nayeri, Jonathan, and the van. Now, the police had the specific details of the van, along with the prisoners. This description was broadcast all over the news channels. The walls were closing in on Nayeri and Jonathan, and their troubles were mounting by the minute. And finally, the inevitable happened. Nayeri and Jonathan pulled the van into the parking lot of a supermarket. A sharp-eyed bystander sitting by the roadside recognized them immediately because he had seen their faces in the van on the news. While the two fugitives went inside the supermarket to buy some supplies, the bystander dialed the police. Unaware that their time was up, Nayeri and Jonathan exited the supermarket only to find themselves completely surrounded by police. Seeing this, Jonathan surrendered quietly. But Nayeri, he wasn't ready to give up yet. He made one last, desperate attempt to run, but it was futile. Officers tackled him to the ground and arrested him. Finally, Nayeri's masterpiece jailbreak had failed. All three prisoners were hauled back to their cells in the Orange County Jail. Their journey of freedom had lasted merely a couple of days, but this escape forced the guards and the police to rethink the entire prison system. After this jailbreak, many fingers were pointed at the Orange County Jail administration. Scrutiny intensified, and several guards were fired from their jobs. The media and the public were asking the authorities just one question: how did this happen? In the aftermath, motion sensor cameras were installed throughout the entire jail. Prisoners were tagged with GPS tracker badges to monitor their exact location at all times. A K-9 dog squad was appointed specifically to sniff out contraband like tools and cell phones. And the prisoner head count? That was increased to 3 times a day. As for the consequences, Bak Duong saw his sentence increased by 20 years. Jonathan was sentenced to a total of 15 years. And the mastermind of this jailbreak, Nayeri, who was already facing murder charges, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. This was the story of a brilliant jailbreak, executed to perfection, but ultimately undone by internal conflict. How did you like this story? Let me know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.